Joining us right now is Tom Rogers, is Oorbit's executive chairman, former NBC Cable president, and CNBC contributor. A lot to chew on, Bob Iger gave us yesterday. I'm curious, Tom, what your initial reaction to all of it was.
Well, good morning, Andrew. You got to give Disney some credit here. They did beat on earnings. They did more aggressively cut losses on the streaming side. They have built a streaming business with over $20 billion in revenue over the last 5 years. But they got a lot of wood to chop still. It's not the first time that I've thought that the market overreacted optimistically to a Disney report, because I think all the fundamental issues they have, both on the streaming side and the traditional TV side, are still there, and a lot of challenges ahead.
So if you are Nelson Peltz, who said effectively that he's seen the end of this movie before, meaning he's seen moments where there have been sort of climaxes in the film, but it ends, in his view, badly, are you in the camp with him?
Well, I'm not sure I'm in anybody's camp. I think that Disney still has to answer some significant questions. Moffett-Nathanson had done an excellent report showing that Netflix, at the same point in revenue and the same point in subs, had about $4 billion more in profitability than Disney did with the same revenue and subs. And so I think there's still questions about what kind of profitability trajectory the streaming business is on. Certainly the streaming business is challenged in subs, having lost subs on the Disney Plus side, lost subs on the ESPN Plus side, gained a little bit on the Hulu side. But the Hulu issue, I think, really points up some significant management issues on the streaming side. Everybody's talking about advertising in the streaming space now as Netflix lights up advertising households, Max lights up advertising households. But Hulu's the granddaddy of advertising in the streaming space, with far more advertising households than anybody else. And last year, ad revenue on Hulu declined. It declined again last quarter. The rates they were charging for advertising on Hulu declined. That's a real head scratcher. And so there's some real challenges on the streaming side. The linear side continues to decline. And the sports venture that was announced, I don't think really adds up to an answer on the sports piece.
Okay, let's stick with that last piece you just said for a second, because we tried to go through some of it yesterday. The impact of that streaming service, and you've talked for a long time about creating these sort of like Switzerland-like, streaming conglomerates, if you will, and you even talked at one point about trying to keep Hulu all together at one, with its various parents involved. Why are you not, then it sounds like, as bullish on the sports piece of this?
Well, it's a question of what this is intended to be. When it was first announced, I think it was overhyped a bit as an answer to the heavy sports viewers' need for a real all-encompassing sports service. There's probably about $16 billion in sports cost that is put into this across the three participants. But Paramount's not in there, NBC's not in there, Apple, Amazon, Google Sports interests are not in there. So there's probably just as much not in there as in there. And it sounds more as if it's a skinny bundle of channels rather than a real answer to how do you simplify the heavy sports users' need for a sports service. And it doesn't really address the biggest challenge that we have out there, which is where is the fan base being challenged when it comes to sports and streaming? It's local sports, the regional sports networks, and how to get local programming, local sports into the streaming environment. That's a real challenge. This doesn't really touch it at all. And the pricing of this sounds very complicated relative to some much cheaper ways of getting all the sports out there. Get a digital antenna for $25 and get CBS, NBC, ABC, Fox, subscribe to ESPN on its own as a digital service once it launched, and you have a much more comprehensive and cheaper approach.
And you just answered my needs, Tom, and that is for the games that are on NBC, the NFL games. They're on NBC and CBS. I was reading that people say, oh, you can buy an antenna and get it through the... It's like, I'm not doing that. I'm not watching the crappy signal that I get with an antenna. I wouldn't even know how to do that on a big screen TV. And, you know, all the other varied and sundry sports, I may or may not think that that's a great idea, that I can watch soccer or something. But I need those Monday. I need the CBS and NBC NFL games. So how do I? And now I'm up to $100 if I get this thing, and then try and figure out a way of getting that stuff. So I don't understand this. And I also, what should the leagues feel right now if everybody's sort of? It's almost like they're. Reminds me of the airlines. It's almost like they can fix prices. It's like, why would one of these guys in this partnership bid against itself and how much they're spending?
Lena Khan.
Huh?
Now you're Lena Khan.
Yeah. Now I'm Lena Khan. Why would why would they bid against themselves? Aren't the leagues going to? We'll know with NBA, but if the NBA comes in at $5 billion a year instead of $7 billion, then we're going to know that this is easier for people to, you know, they can, I don't know, pay the leagues less.
Oh, I totally disagree, because they're going to sell this in various packages.
What do you think, Tom?
This is not going to be the only
I wasn't
place.
talking to you. I was actually asking Tom. What do you think, Tom?
Well, it's really what are the ambitions of this? If this is really intended to be a sports venture, then I think the leagues are going to have some real concern here. The leagues want to know who they're in business with, and all of a sudden, independent management has been created in this separate entity. If you're the NFL, what's the governance of this? Does each party have a veto on how this is marketed and put together? And if so, Warner, which has no relationship with the NFL, doesn't have an NFL package, has control in some sense of the distribution of its content within something that's intended to be a major sports distributor. On the other hand, if it's just a skinny bundle of channels, which Bob Iger seemed to suggest on the CNBC interview yesterday, that's a whole different question. But then the question becomes, there is conflict between what the ambitions are of an ESPN streaming channel on its own and this venture. I was co-chairman of it.
I don't think